Hey, this is Bryn, and today we are in Unreal Engine and we're going to be adding materials to our project. Now, materials are the surfaces of things, basically. Its colors is what make things. You can add colors to all different surfaces. It has imperfections. It can get quite complicated if you want to head into the more of the advanced stuff, but we're not going to be doing that because we're not creating a video game here. We have a deadline of when this needs to be finished. We want to just get this out so we can show our client and so it works well for us. We don't need to make it ultra realistic because we don't have a consumer market which is paying for this. So we can get away with making things relatively basic. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to go down to content down here, right click, hit new folder, and we want to go type in here material or materials. In here, we'll store all of our materials that we'll need for our project. Now, what I recommend for you to do is to create a material straight from scratch is hit right click in that box there and go material. We're going to call this matte, standing for material, underscore matte black. And as a reminder, you cannot use spaces in Unreal. Even I make that mistake from time to time like I just did just then. Matte black. Okay, so material, matte black. Open this up and you'll notice that it is completely black. Now we can change the base color here and it defines the overall color of the material. We can double click there and make a color, whatever we need. Or there's another way of doing it, which is we type in 3 constant and we add a constant 3 vector. Click on that. Convert this to a parameter. Call this color. I am Australian/British, so that's how we spell color. So if you're American, you're spelling it wrong. And we hit this button here on the top. We added what's called a node and we place this sort of link here to base color. And the reason why we do this is further along when we make more expansive materials, when we get more complicated with how we build materials and we add brightness and contrast and add all these different things that we can change, we can create what's called a material instance. And material instance is basically an easy way to change all these settings inside the material without having to go into this big blueprint here and change everything manually. And when we convert this to a parameter, as we've just done, we can change this very quickly without having to go into here. And that's why we've added that parameter. And you just want to keep this super simple. Then you can just change the base color on the just right here. Now, if you remember from the last tutorial, you can change it to two-sided. So it means that if you've only got a flat surface and it's not 3D, then your material or your surface will be seen on both sides. So if you need to, select two-sided. I usually select this by default anyway, just because it means that any model material is always going to be seen no matter which direction or which way you face it. Once you've done that, hit save. And we've got a matte black color. Now, the reason why I usually have a matte black color is just so that I can put it on any sort of surface I want. Like the back of my stage here, which needs to be black anyway. You can go into further detail and you can put in, you can put in the actual fabric or the actual whatever material that's used for the back of the stage. You can actually put that in there and it can be waving around in the wind. However, the problem with this is this takes up too much of our time. At the end of the day, we want to make these visualizations as quickly as possible. Now, you will notice it's got a little bit of a glossy look here. That is not gloss. That is just the reflection of the sun. One way I've gone about trying to get rid of this is just to connect this black here to specular. And that seems to get rid of that shine there. And it's a straight black color. So that's one way to get rid of the reflection of the sun on your materials if you need to. Now that we've done that, we've now created a material. What we can do from here is we can start adding in other materials which are better for things like the ground and grass and different surfaces and things like that. If you've never used Unreal before, you won't be aware of this, but up in the top left-hand corner here where it says quickly add to project, we can have a look for other materials which have already been pre-made, such as grass and all of that, which do look quite good. So we want to go into Unreal Marketplace, go library. Now, I've already saved a whole bunch of stuff in here which I use in my projects. So mine's going to look very different to yours. What you want to do is you want to go into Fab right there and go start exploring. Once Fab has been opened, what we want to do is we want to search for grass. Now, a lot of the time you don't want to pay for any of this stuff. I get it. And that is totally fine. What you can do is you can go price here. Just hit free. And we have all these options. Look at all these options for grass, because grass is so exciting. Yeah. Anyways, we can look at grass here, and it's already saved in my library. So what do I do then? Well, we go to my library, and I usually go with the texture set, or you can go with the GLTF. It doesn't really matter. Now, you can decide to use the whole 4K, and it takes up 38 megabytes. But trust me when I say this, you're probably not going to need that level of detail in your projects. It just takes up a lot of space on your hard drive. We exit out of this. It's been saved. We've now got this here, and we're going to add the GLTF file to materials. But before we do that, what we want to do is we want to add a new folder, of course. Add in grass. Keep things organized. Don't add everything to one folder, because it makes things a lot harder to find later on. Trust me on this, it is an absolute pain to do that. Now, you won't be able to add directly from the zip folder. The program won't allow you to do that. Unreal won't allow you to add things directly from a zip folder. So you have to take them out of the zip folder first and then add them in. And we've got the textures there. Great. What is a texture? A texture is like the base sort of color, or the base surface of what we're using. And we have different textures for different things. So I'm not going to go into the full explanation of different textures, because even I don't understand all of the different types of textures, because I'm not a design student. I don't have a design background. I have an events background, and I've learned how to use this. What we want to do is make this matte material underscore grass. There we go. Done. Great. Open that up. It's going to be blank. We want to add all of these in here. Great, we got all these texture samples, but we need to connect these up. First thing we want to do is we're going to go from this RGB here, we're going to go base color, because usually whatever the base color is, what looks like what it's supposed to be is the one you need to put into base color. You'll know, like, you'll look at a texture and you'll say, oh, that looks like what I'm supposed to have, compared to what this is. Like, that's blue. We don't need blue. Grass is not blue. We're then going to go RGB from this. And this is usually when you have a texture that's blue like that, it's what's normal. Goes into normal, which is just in the middle here. And the next thing we want to add in here is a texture coordinator. So right click and then go text. And the next thing we want to do is we want to connect this to UVs on all of the different texture samples that we are using. Why are we adding this? Well, I'm going to show you right now. Save. Now, you'll look at the material and you'll see that and you're like, wow, that looks great, from up there. But when you go look in close, it's like, wow, that really doesn't look that great. And that is because it hasn't tiled correctly. So a material, what it will do, it will tile itself as many times as you want it to. However, at the moment, the material is way too big. Like, no grass shard is that big. Like, that's like a 2 meter by like 0.5 meter grass shard there. So no grass is that big. So what we're going to do is we're going to retile it so that it is the right size for what we are using it for. So that's why we've added in texture coordinate, because texture coordinate is allowing us to change the tiling. So now that we've added the node in already, because we're smart cookies, we go U and then we increase this to 10. Why not? We do the U and the T, which is basically horizontal and vertical. Now you might be looking, wow, that looks like really tiled, but don't worry. When you put actual grass samples and grass foliage on top of that, you won't notice the difference. Like, you won't notice that it is super tiled, because we're not looking at it from this, because you can see where there's sort of like the lines of where the material starts and stops and things like that. You can change this. You can go into a lot more detail with this. You can add in rocks. You can add in, obviously, grass. And I will go into adding grass in a minute in a future video, because most projects, if you're doing it outside, you will need to do it, even for events. However, for now, we're not going to do that. We're just going to focus on the materials. And yeah, so you won't really notice it being so tiled and looking at it like this. And don't forget, when we do play our scene, so we play our scene, what it's going to look like to our clients, you will not see the grid either. So that's what it's going to look like to your clients. And even though it doesn't look the greatest at the moment, this is just the base color underneath where your grass is, the actual grass follicles and the grass objects are going to be. So we go through our project and we add in all the materials that we need to. Maybe you want to change this to some sort of branding, or you want to add something in here or there. That's how you add materials to Unreal Engine for events. And we're going, in our next tutorial, we're going to talk about how we add videos. So we're going to go sort of along the line here of progressive thinking, and we're going to go into the next tutorial, which is using the skills we've just learned in this tutorial, and we're going to apply them to adding in movies and videos inside of Unreal. So a plasma screen, you're going to have a video on a plasma screen.